This episode of the Demonic Compendium contains spoilers for the following games. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to a meowvelous new episode of the Demonic Compendium, the show where I discuss the mythology, design, and game history of your favorite Megami Tensei demons. Since I recently did a video on the second Yakuza Black Panther game, I was kidding around with the idea of covering a relevant demon. But then I paused for thought and realized this would be the perfect addition to the catalog, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So sharpen your sword and don your boots, because today, I'm talking about Cait Sith. And yes, it is pronounced Cait Sith. It's Gaelic.
Cait Sith!
I don't know who told Xander Mobus to pronounce it that way, but they're wrong. It's especially weird because Atlas has pronounced it correctly in the past.
Activating comm! Let's go, Cait Sith!
Midori's voice may make me want to jam screwdrivers in my ears, but at least she knows how to pronounce Cait Sith. Okay, got that off my chest, let's actually start the episode. Cait Sith, which roughly translates as cat spirit or cat fairy, analogous to the Kushi or dog fairy, are ancient supernatural cats in Scottish folklore. It's believed that the Cait Sith originates, at least in oral traditions, as far back as the 1500s, with folktales like The King of the Cats, where a man speaks to a cat who tells him to tell Tom Tildrum that Tim Tuldrum is dead, and when he does, his cat would yell out, "Then I'm King of the Cats," and run away. Cut them some slack, they didn't have YouTube back then to entertain them. Cait Sith are frequently described as being larger than a normal cat, having dark fur, green eyes, and usually a white tuft on their chests. In fact, a very bizarre thing about their appearance is that many of their compendium entries say that they're dog-sized, which, let's be honest, means nothing. There are several species of dogs that are smaller than the average cat, and I don't think the implication is that these cats are the size of a Great Dane or anything. Just take it that it means that it's, larger than a normal cat. Throughout the centuries, there have been a lot of different tales associated with the Cait Sith. In some folklore, they're fairies, in others, they're magical familiars associated with witchcraft and are the start of the whole 9 lives thing. In some Celtic traditions, it was believed that a Cait Sith would steal the soul of the recently deceased, so people would celebrate the person's life with music, dancing, games, and sprinkling catnip around a fire to try and distract the fairy until the spirit can ascend. Some tales associate the Cait Sith with Samhain, where people would leave out a saucer of milk for the spirit, and if they didn't, the Cait Sith would curse their cows. Honestly, it's sort of fascinating to see how many common elements or superstitions around cats seem to date back to folklore associated with the Cait Sith. These were mostly oral traditions, and supposedly the actual term, Cait Sith, didn't start appearing in written texts and fairy tales until around the 1800s. Some believe that the story of Puss in Boots may have been inspired by tales of the Cait Sith, since they share elements of larger, intelligent cats capable of understanding human speech. The original tale of Puss in Boots came out in Italy in the mid-1500s by author Giovanni Francesco Straparola, but the more popular version of the tale that helped cement it as a cultural icon was the French version in the 1690s from Charles Perrault. I bring this up, of course, because many modern interpretations of Cait Sith in pop culture incorporate elements of the Puss in Boots character, creating an interesting Ouroboros of inspirations. Cait Sith's compendium entry from Persona 5 Tactica refers to them as a fey beast from the Scottish Highlands. Their kingdoms are in tree hollows or abandoned houses, dog-sized with vivid green eyes. Some live with humans as they understand our speech. Hey, real quick, if you like what I'm doing on the show, please consider commenting, subscribing, maybe even checking out the Patreon. It honestly does help a lot. Thanks so much, moving on. Design-wise, as I previously discussed, Cait Sith draws heavily from the story of Puss in Boots. Particularly, Kaneko seems to have taken the design right from the illustration of the feline folk hero by Gustave Doré in the 1860s. We can clearly see a lot of elements that went into his demon design, including the big hat with the feather, the belt around his waist, the boots, the cape, and the peculiar fact that both this illustration and the demon version of Cait Sith do not have tails, which I always thought was kind of strange. Another likely inspiration for Cait Sith's demon design that also seems to have been inspired by Doré's depiction is, of course, Pero, the mascot for Toei Animation, who appeared in the 1969 animated film Nagagutsu o Haita Neko, or The Wonderful World of Puss in Boots. The titular hero, Pero, named after the French author of Puss in Boots, has a lot of the same features, like the red hat and boots. Kaneko's Cait Sith even seems to mimic Pero's iconic pose, with the sword held aloft and a hand resting on his hip, that you can still see to this day as a statue outside of the Toei Animation Museum. Cait Sith also has a Demikid's design that, like a few other demons in this franchise, just kinda seems to be a more cartoonish looking version of the original demon, which is always extra funny to me when it's a figure that already looks like a goofy cartoon character. As far as game history goes, Cait Sith appears relatively often as a low-level figure. How low level? Well, in Persona 5 Tactica, he's one of the first sub-personas that the Phantom Thieves unlock, and he's so close to the bottom that you can't even create him via fusion. Seriously, there are 0 recipes for making this demon in that game. Cait Sith is also basically your starter demon in the Xbox exclusive title Shin Megami Tensei 9. Like, at the start of the game, when your character zoops into the idea space for the very first time, like, bam, Cait Sith is already there and just chilling out with you. I'll be honest, this game is such a blind spot for me, like really, this is the title I wish would get a remake or an HD remaster or something, because I would like to experience it. On the subject of Cait Sith and SMT games, I do remember in the MMO title, Shin Megami Tensei Imagine, there was like a giant one hanging out in the area not far from the starting zone. That thing would absolutely kill you if you weren't careful. Cait Sith has also had a few roles in Devil Survivor. In the first game, he sort of acts as Midori's signature demon, and she frequently summons them when attempting to play hero throughout the lockdown to Tokyo. Sure, she's terrifying people and has no idea how to read the situation, but like I mentioned earlier, at least she knows how Cait Sith is pronounced. Another character in the series also uses Cait Sith, as Irie summons him in the Devil Survivor 2 anime a few times, notably in the fight against the Septentrion Fecta. In the Demi-Kids games, Cait Sith appears as many of the generic NPCs throughout the title, and is one of the most common sprites. As an actual demon, the GBA titles combined the 2 words of his name into one, so instead of Cait Sith, it's just like Cait Sith. Speaking of appearing, not really doing anything, and having a different name, Cait Sith is called Muscat in Revelations Persona, and the most noteworthy thing about this demon is that the Waltz of Sadness skill it uses, oh my god, it takes forever. So this isn't much of a role, but Cait Sith was not in the original Persona 5, however, he was added to Persona 5 Royal. So when you get to this early part of Kamoshida's palace and you get the tutorial about like, oh yeah, in Third Eye you can see how tough shadows are, in Persona 5 you run into some Kelpies. And you expect that to still be the case in Royal, but nah, it's like, whoa, Cait Sith, that's new, and its shadow name is the Hunting Puss in Boots, an obvious reference to, well, look at it, we've been over this. There's also a super-powered version of the Shadow in the Path of Dot in Mementos known as the Playful Puss in Boots that teams up with Nekomata. Sending Cait Sith to the electric chair gives players the Agi skill card, or a Maragi skill card if an alarm is in effect. And given that this demon is a cat with a sword and some iconic accessories, I really think it not itemizing into some sort of unique equipment for Morgana was a massively missed opportunity. Cait Sith actually has a lot of roles in Shin Megami Tensei 5. For starters, I'm not even going to try and collect every example, but he just is a lot of NPCs. From being one of Mokoi's friends in one conversation, to being among Apsaris' flock, to one that just hangs out in the fairy village, and honestly probably more. In Shin Megami Tensei Vengeance, he picks up a few more roles. Cait Sith appears as one of the demon partners of Yuzuru Atsuta near the start of the game, and can cast Graham Slice. Cait Sith serves as the introduction to the concept of Magatsuhi demons, and the one hanging out in Fairy Village gives the Nahubino the Grimalkin Pariopt, a key item that allows you to cast the special Magatsuhi spell Feline Fury if you have Cait Sith, Neko Shogun, and Nekomata in your party. And speaking of Cait Sith and Nekomata, the two have a hilariously awkward special conversation with one another. Cait Sith basically goes full milady on her as he tries to invite her for afternoon tea, being all formal and fancy, and she's just like, okay, you're weird. It's a fun conversation and ties heavily into Cait Sith's lore about him ruling over kingdoms in hollow trees and empty houses, which Nekomata thinks is lame and gross. Naturally, she shoots him down and then just leaves. Tough break, buddy. But this saga actually continues in the mobile title Shin Megami Tensei Liberation D2, during the special event Angel Army in the Cat Kingdom, which has Cait Sith's iconic hat in the logo. Cait Sith is ruling over a special Origate kingdom of cats with other demons like Ose, Neko Shogun, Kabuso, who is actually an otter, and of course Nekomata. And guess what? He still asks her to join him for tea every single day. Kind of a problematic approach to courtship, but it's a cute enough callback all the same. I definitely wasn't expecting to see what feels like an intentional reference to Shin Megami Tensei 5 in this event. Oh yeah, and then angels invade Ketchi's kingdom, so Kabuso seeks the D2's help and Ketchi is fighting off the angels, and finally they all agree to come to a ceasefire to take down the mutual threat of Rahab, but then Ketchi finds out the angels killed Nekomata and slaughtered all the innocent inhabitants of his kingdom, so even when Ketchi and Kamael have a chance to kill Rahab, they're so distrustful of each other that Rahab escapes, and it all ends with Ketchi mourning the death of his friends, the loss of his love, his shortcomings as a king, and his failure in the mission, leading to him just walking away from it all, leaving the ruins of his kingdom behind him. Holy shit, that's not fun or whimsical at all. Tough break, buddy. Also, again, I think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity that Ketchi can't be transformed into any unique weapons or anything in this game. And that's basically been it. Ketchi got his 3D model in Shin Megami Tensei 9, but didn't really appear in many other games of the era, like Nocturne, the Raito games, Digital Devil Saga, or Personas 3 and 4. He really didn't have much of a comeback until Persona 5 Royal, but as you saw from this episode, he usually does do something when he shows up. So whatever the future holds for the franchise, whether it's Persona 6 or Raito 3 or whatever, I'm sure this cat hasn't gone through his 9 lives just yet. And there you have it, Ketchi, the frequently phonetically fumbled feline fey fighter fiercely fencing ferocious foes in the forests. Did I leave out something you thought was important? Was I just plain wrong about something? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to let me know who you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. That's going to do it for this episode of the Demonic Compendium, and I will see you next time. But be careful while you rest, that a demon doesn't take over your body.